Alright, before we begin I want to make one thing clear. The disclaimer used in all my videos that is against harassment is not to be taken lightly. I genuinely do not endorse or avow any sort of harassment towards the subjects of my videos, and that distinction is especially clear to make in today's situation, where we will be discussing and heavily criticizing people who are only around 14 to 15 years old. In a perfect world, a situation like this would have been handled privately, but it's clear that the motivations for this were malicious in some way, and they should be held responsible for what they said and how they used their platforms. I'm sure many viewers from this channel remember a time where I mainly covered Friday Night Funkin' YouTubers and their sexual degeneracy, but as of late I've shifted towards more drama-based topics online, and one influence of that was a situation regarding an individual by the name of Revy03. From January 2022 to January 2023, Revy, the director of the fairly successful VersusSonic.exe mod, was falsely accused of pedophilia and grooming. Whilst her behaviour was irresponsible, it came nowhere close to what qualifies as grooming, and in some cases she was condemned for harmless age gaps. The allegations were driven by Revy's fellow modders, who privately resented her for different reasons, and as a result of all of this, Revy was harassed and doxxed for months, with the FNF community largely conditioned to attack anyone who suggested she was innocent or even showcased her work. Ironically, some of the main modders who had exiled her were shielding for Jesterfrog, a person who had done so much worse than Revy, yet was given the treatment of rehabilitation. Revy's reputation would not have been saved had it not been for the array of people fighting for the truth, and today the story stands as another testament of an individual who was falsely accused online. But you'd think after such an event that people would learn in some way. Today's video concerns the partial exoneration of Clocky333, a 14-year-old FNF musician and sprite artist. Clocky never had anywhere near the reach that Revy had, sitting at around 1,000 followers on Twitter, but she is still a talented kid. I know of her because of her work on the demo of the promising rap-based FNF mod Lamar, and I was pretty impressed by what I saw. Unfortunately though, Clocky's work has been overshadowed by allegations made against her. Clocky's two accusers, Zaev and Tomie, are around the same age as her, and came out in June this year. In fact, you may have already seen a screenshot of her that became pretty well memed. Draw her fatter, please make her fatter, fatter, make her fatter, fatter. And even though it's hard not to laugh at these, something about these long Twitter threads just clicked with suspicion. Honestly, I could have let it go, but that itch in my brain was questioning why some of these screenshots had cut off the message's context, or why one of these statements was so brief and succinct. And eventually that itch led me into contact with the accused, someone who had sworn off all online activity for the foreseeable future. And it turns out that this situation isn't as black and white as the quote tweets made it out to be. The truth is, Clocky, a 14-year-old, has had her online career destroyed and her real life interfered with because of allegations of being a sex pest, with any questioning of said allegations met with fierce backlash. Today's video will disprove those allegations, and show how petty and malicious motivations and a melting pot of Discord drama turned into a hate mob based on lies. Alright, on June 28th, 2024, a Twitter artist by the name of Tomie came out with accusations against Clocky, their former partner. Tomie is a Twitter artist who, in this document, accuses Clocky of viewing them as fetish material without their knowledge. You see, Clocky has a fat fetish, and Tomie is overweight. So essentially the accusation is that for the entirety of their relationship, Clocky was just dating them because they fulfilled their fetish. We're gonna get back to this later, but for now this is just context for the thread that most people know in regards to Clocky, a thread made by Zaev. Zaev is a 15-year-old FNF modder and Twitter artist who also has a channel for shitpost and used to be a friend of Clocky's. The two had met last year when Clocky was working on a Five Nights at Treasure Island mix and was seemingly alright with each other until recently. And yes, I know, a 15-year-old making an exposed thread and 14-year-old, FNF Twitter is not beating the school playground fight allegations. In March I became more comfortable showing Clocky my art. I didn't think much of it, as I thought Clocky was a nice person that had an interest in my art, but shown below, that interest became sort of an obsession, as they constantly asked me about art progress. Clocky would ask these questions a lot, and it would typically lead to him asking if I can draw their OC fat, or some weird fetish related stuff. I didn't think it was weird because I thought it was merely a stylistic choice, not to mention I'm plus sized IRL. Clocky would also promise that he'd draw my OC if I'd drawn hers. None of these promises would come true and it was all false hope. Not to mention that the majority of Clocky's retweets would be fanart/art trade posts from others, yet says this to me. Lastly, Clocky would treat me like a freak, even if I'd done nothing wrong. I gave them countless free art, and to be talked like this genuinely hurts me. These screenshots are from a private server my friend wanted to invite me in. Clocky calls me an art beggar, despite all of what happened above. He also says I can't draw, despite the last screenshot whilst I'm still a beginner artist. I felt bad and shit about myself for a while after seeing this said about me. My final message to Clocky, even if they find this, is that I hope you change from all of this, but that'll be like a mountain to climb up at this point. You literally tried to hide your fetishes here, but as time went on, that facade of yours slipped. You're a 14-year-old, and seeing this type of content is really damaging. I'm really hurt, disappointed, and pissed off about you. Our friendship wasn't genuine, all you wanted to do to me was use me like an object, as I didn't know any better of all this. F you, genuinely. To the victims of Clocky, I hope you all are doing okay, because my god, that sounded really awful, and it's just disgusting. May you guys be healed from this, oh my f***ing god, that's really bad to hear, and I'm sorry for all of that. I hope you all stay safe. Okay, we're gonna start with the accusations that imply Clocky is a sex pest. I know it isn't outright stated, but accusing someone of getting people to unknowingly participate in their fetish is exactly that. And from the wording in these final statements, saying you tried to hide your fetishes here, and all you wanted to do to me was use me like an object, it's pretty obvious. Zaev says that they only saw these art requests as a stylistic choice, and implies that Clocky hid her fetish and used Zaev as an object to unknowingly participate in her fat fetish. That is a blatant lie. From all the other DMs that you were conveniently never shown, Zaev knew about Clocky's fetishes the entire time, and in fact, they are into the same kind of stuff. It's just that they took the opportunity to torch Clocky by cropping one-sided Discord search results. Here, finally give Clocky a regular eyes. It's so awesome. Yes, and then they eat popsicle. They ate popsicle and ate pizza afterwards. Fatties. Fatties. They are fatties. Why is she peeking the stomach? I'm starting to feel like this is your fetish, isn't it? I won't judge if it is. I saw her draw herself and the stomach was peeking out. No. Are you lying? To what? This. I don't know. Maybe. No, I don't know. Yes or no? What about you though? Do you have one? Yeah. Okay, I'll admit. Yeah, I kinda do as well. I knew it. Have you drawn any of the fetish or fetish art? No, but I've seen some other stuff like it though. This is the really important DM. Also, please don't tell anyone about this stuff. I kinda knew you had a thing for fat people, and I just kept it to myself, because I don't judge people unless it's like really bad. Fuck off, you thought it was a stylistic choice. This is fucking crazy. How can you write a DM like this, and then write that whole thread? Can I just draw Zaev? So just her. Yeah, sure. Just draw as fat as you can. Friend's birthday today. She gets fatter each drawing. Yeah, she eats a lot and gets fatter. Man, we got like, it's like Plato and Aristotle, like, fucking talking. Also, just for clarification, by the way, none of these DMs, none of the DMs in the Tomie segment were screenshotted and leaked by Clocky. They were screenshotted by me, after Clocky gave me permission to log into her account and look through the DMs. Just want to make that clear. But first of all, why the f*** are two 14-year-olds doing this in the DMs? This is not good for you, just breathe the air outside. But I guess we should also be asking why your 14-year-old is being painted out as a sex pest in a one-sided campaign of deviancy, when the truth is that both you were involved in it. I shouldn't have to read these DMs and show to you, it's weird to show. I don't want to out this person's like private sexual life, but I kinda have to if you're going out here and boldly lying about someone. Zaev tried to put on this sense of oblivion and being a lost victim taken advantage of, when in reality, it's far from that. If you want to tell me that putting Zaev on blast and exposing all these DMs is bad, maybe you should ask Zaev why they put out these DMs and humiliated Clocky, especially when the rest of the thread could function fairly well without it. Why would you lie about this? Also, just want to note that before this thread was posted, Zaev never went privately to talk or complain about this behavior to Clocky, just completely out of the blue, no warning, no discussion, no anything. To the people who have defended Clocky's actions. Yes, Clocky is 14, but you do realize he was doing all this with the knowledge he knew would eventually get called out for all this? What the f does that mean? Oh, clearly this 14-year-old is an insane manipulator who did all this knowing he was going to be caught? Like, imagine me making the same argument towards Zaev, saying that she cropped the screenshots because she knew she was going to be caught. Do you realize how insane that sounds? You can't just let a 14-year-old with this type of behavior to get a free pass. You guys wouldn't be as forgiving if he was much older. Yet even if this was my experience of Clocky, that doesn't mean the other people's experiences with them can be brushed off by his age. True, this is why I'm holding you accountable for your actions despite your age as well. Whilst the accusations of Clocky being some sort of sex pest hold about as much weight as bird, the other accusations saying that Clocky was acting like a snake and didn't fulfill his promises are far more valid concerns. He really does act like a dick, especially in these messages, and if the thread was just that, I probably wouldn't even be talking about it right now. But I did want to give Clocky a platform to speak. So I guess, with Zaev's issues with you not like fulfilling the opera, would you say that's like a valid criticism to make?
Yeah, no, 100%. That's like one of the issues I see in myself like already, because like I'm not really that good at fulfilling promises. Because I used to work on a bunch of FNF mods back in the day, like when I was like 12, 13. And I wouldn't really get stuff done, and usually it would just end up in me getting kicked out, or like they would just forget about me. So It's kind of like a Lanko issue.
And I guess my other question is Zaev's kind of screenshots of you, like, I guess being a snake. I'll call it being a snake by like saying, "Oh, don't like invite me to this Discord server," all that stuff. So how do you respond to that?
I'd say that that's mainly my fault because I overlooked her as a person, and it was only with how other people were with her. I should remind you again. I'm gonna mention names that aren't Zaev or Tomie. Please censor them if you do release the uncut version. Yeah. But I mentioned them earlier. They had like a similar issue with them, or we both had like issues with her being kind of annoying. So I thought when I said that it would be fine, but apparently she just like really didn't have much of an issue. So like I felt horrible, you know, because like I was the only ones with those opinions, and like even if she did have those opinions, it wasn't as bad as I had made it out to be. So it was just me trying to like figure out how other people thought.
You can see how Zaev would feel if, like, someone who, I guess, I don't know if you were close friends, but you were certainly friends.
Yeah.
Someone like that goes on, like, a Discord server and says, like, "Oh, phone invite this person." I'd say that's, like, the worst thing you've done to Zaev out of all this.
Yeah, no, I can say that, like, for the most part, in this entire situation, like, including, like, the other allegations, the most I've done is just, like, be an ignorant asshole, and, like, that's what I can be accountable of, because, I've already been like mistreated a bunch, and for me to do that to other people, it's just kind of like bad. And Zaev, if you're like hearing this, I am like sorry for mainly that, because I know how it feels to like be think of like someone else as a friend, but then like they turn their backs on you. And I don't know if you want to resolve it now, but if you ever do, like, know that like that's one of the things I genuinely do regret, being such an asshole to you, and to everyone else that I've been an asshole to.
However, I also want to make it clear that out of all the people who can make this accusation, it should not be Zaev. Back in June of 2023, a Google Doc was made on Zaev, and it really is an interesting read. It's a collection of testimonies from former friends. Zaev has always acted like we're best buds, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. He always makes fun of me, judges me, and outright lies about me. The worst thing he's ever done was take advantage of our friendship and use me against my friends. He would tell me lies about them and make me take a side. I was a complete idiot for falling for it, since he was so vague and nonsensical about it, but because it's easy to make me feel bad for someone, I fell for it anyways. It got so bad to the point that I literally took the blame for him and told everyone that I had lied about him, to give him a chance to redeem himself, but instead he accused everyone of a bunch of stupid shit they never did, and then ditched us for his Twitter friends, only to come crawling back later with no consequences. Me and Zaev met each other after I drew him 3 pieces of genuine, not requested fan art on Twitter. When we started talking on Discord, it started off fairly normal, till he asked me if I took art requests. And I can safely say the art request started off normal as well. Later on though, the requests did start to ramp up. It'd be almost every day it came to me about a new art request that would usually involve my female OCs, his female OCs, and other people's female OCs, which more often than not would be suggestive. At the time I had no issue with these, as I held a belief that I was being a good friend by delivering on his art request no matter what. There was one problem that I had though. Typically, if I didn't get a drawing done in a certain amount of minutes/hours or a few days, he'd rapidly come into my DMs to bug me about the progress of the art he requested. Oh god, Zaev, it's literally a 1-to-1 parallel, holy fuck. I'd barely get anything in return for making all this art, by the way. The only thing I'd get were quirky kitty responses, along with heart emoji reactions. A big turning point in our friendship is when Zaev had found out about my female OC Bliss and started to obsess over her. If you've known Zaev for about 1 second, you already know how he is, so I don't need to explain this hypersexual nature. But yeah, our friendship emitted a strong suggestive tone later on, which led to questionable art being created. Never crossing the line of porn, but getting bad. Besides that, he sparked a roleplay dynamic. I basically had become his sissy twink daughter. No. No. Oh my god. And I'm assuming that's all he saw me as, since we would never be able to talk normally. I did actually find this a little weird at the time, but I played into it cause, yeah, I was not in a good mental state at the time. Just absolutely horrible. This might be the most tamest thing that happened, but it does suck knowing that this was the vision he had of me. So if Zaev did most of the stuff she's accusing Clocky of doing, and leaving out heaps of context to paint Clocky as something terrible, then why make this thread? What is the motivation behind it? Well, now you see why I preface this segment in chronological order, because my theory is that Zaev saw Tomie's document, which was accusing Clocky of some fetishizing shit, and thought, hey, I can jump on that bandwagon. I think Zaev had a genuine grievance with Clocky, as hypocritical as they were, but making a thread on someone simply being a snake wasn't going to get far. So sprinkle in some sexual degeneracy, and the ball rolls much faster. Zaev was piggybacking, no pun intended, and basing her claims off an allegation with much less attention, one from Clocky's former partner Tomie, and she may say publicly that she's deleted the thread and made up since Clocky published his own response, and she regrets saying all that and it was all overblown and written by a mysterious friend, but between you and me, I know that's not true. I can't show it yet, but take my word for it just this once. But what about this whole Tomie document? Hardcore FNF Twitter White Knights will tell you that this is really the main event, this is the real killer, and even upon my first read, I believe that this was showing the true imperfections of Clocky in full display. It wasn't until later that I realised Tomie and this document aren't much better. Stick around until after the break for more FNF Twitter allegation shenanigans. Getting in an accident can be a nightmare for a number of reasons, and if you're seriously hurt, your injury could be worth millions. But filing an injury claim is such a complicated affair, it can land you in piles of paperwork and constant meetings and trekking to law offices, and at the end of the day, you might just be given a raw deal. But it doesn't have to be like this. As the largest injury law firm in America with over 100 offices in all 50 states, Morgan & Morgan have the resources to fight to get you the best results if you become their client, and are capable of going above and beyond on a case to see it through. They don't settle for lowball offers, and have even achieved significant verdicts in the past couple of months for victims involved in life-altering car crashes, like winning $12 million for someone in Florida, or $26 million in Philadelphia. Not only that, but the fee that you pay is absolutely free, unless you win. There's no upfront costs or sign-up fees. If you don't win your case, you pay nothing. There are over 3 million people calling Morgan & Morgan every year in their time of need, and they're being helped by over 4,000 customer support staff, over 1,000 all-star local lawyers. Hell, when you hire Morgan & Morgan, you get a dedicated legal team, case investigators, paralegals and customer case specialists, all focused on maximizing your settlement. So it's no surprise that they've recovered over $20 billion in total for their clients. So if you ever got seriously injured, your case could be worth millions, and you're only a few clicks away from potentially changing your life. It's so easy, you can start your claim now with Morgan & Morgan at www.forthepeople.com/Toastify, or by scanning the QR code on screen from your phone's camera. Thank you again to Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring this video. On June 28th, 2024, Tomie published a Google document to Twitter, which reads as follows. Hello, I kinda want to talk about this because it's genuinely been dragging me down so incredibly bad and affecting my mental health. I don't feel comfortable using this account much anymore, and I will be moving to other accounts again, sadly. Sorry. It's about a user named @Clocky333, a user I no longer feel comfortable associating with. So many times I've dismissed talking about this because they've asked me not to. Silencing myself isn't working anymore. Not even that long ago, me and Clocky had a thing going on and we were talking and stuff, and they had viewed me as their fetish material, as I am plus size / overweight. They have a fat fetish, an inflation fetish, and a vor fetish, and have admitted these things to me personally. Oh, Toastify, I really want to bat for the vor enjoyer. This is a tough task. Going into our DMs to make me sick physically, and I just needed to get this out because it's been genuinely fucking destroying my mental state. I have issues looking at my self-image, I hate my body now, and I don't think I'll like it for a long time. I'm going to be staying on my Discord for a long time, I'm probably staying off Twitter, as this has impacted me heavily. Out of all the words you could have used to end that, you used the word heavily? You're just writing the jokes for me. So out of this, the main two allegations levied here are that Clocky apparently sexualized Tomie and viewed them as fetish material, and that Clocky apparently tried to silence Tomie from coming out about their experience. These are both pretty big allegations to levy, but how do they hold up? Well, this document is barely a page long and includes only one screenshot. It's a miracle that there was even any support behind it. I could literally just stop the segment here, and I think most people would find that reasonable, but we need to get to the bottom of this, even if that requires showing the DMs that Tomie never did. Tomie and Clocky became friends in October 2023 and then briefly dated for about 3 to 4 days. This ended naturally, but Tomie, who is overweight, then confronts Clocky because they find out Clocky has a fat fetish, which was not disclosed. However, this issue is resolved to the point that they date again, this time for a month. After this relationship ends, Tomie finds out that Clocky has a vor and inflation fetish that she didn't tell her, and is pissed again. They resolve their issues again, but then they have some unrelated disagreements. Tomie supposedly quote-unquote reflects on it, decides to bring it up again in this huge rant on the 28th of June, and then posts this Google Doc. So essentially the basis for the fetishizing allegation is that Clocky didn't disclose the fetishes to her and was trying to hide it. Whilst I understand the reasoning behind coming to such a view, this entire thing hinges on the fact that Clocky hid her fetishes with malicious intent. There could be a million reasons why someone wants to hide their fetish. Maybe it's because they're 14 and don't want to talk about that kind of stuff. Maybe it's for the basic fact of privacy and information like that is very secret and they don't want that spreading out. Maybe it's because they're embarrassed of what they're into and will only tell people they really trust. Maybe it's because you kept venting about how much you hate people with their fetish, and they feel terrible because they don't want to lose you, but they should have told the truth earlier. This whole fetishizing claim stands on even more unstable ground, considering that Clocky and Tomie's relationship is mainly and mostly romantic, not sexual. It's nowhere near to the conversations we saw with Zaev. I think it's fine to criticize Clocky for being dishonest and hiding something like this from her partner, but there's a difference between an accusation of dishonesty and one of fetishization. Dishonesty is bad, but can have an innocent reason behind it. Fetishization is a direct allegation of malicious intent. Clocky's made a number of responses to all this, but the most definitive one has been made after new information resurfaced. She states that she was gaslighted by Tomie into believing she had fetishized her, and she also didn't want to dispute someone who was a mentally unstable individual who goes through psychotic episodes out of fear of setting her off. This is an explanation for all the agreeing and bowing down that Clocky does in these DMs. Clocky has even said that a reliable source told them that Tomie admitted to lying about the fetishizing. So who's right in this battle of he said, she said? Well, it may seem obvious, but as I dug further into the DMs, the proof only seemed to allude to this being more of a malicious move from Tomie. One thing that's really weird is how much Tomie's friends are mentioned in the situation. Clocky and Tomie's relationship begins on the 5th of May 2024, and is mostly fine for a month, but then come a bunch of successive events that lead to the collapse of the relationship. On the 5th of June 2024, Tomie's friends find out about her relationship and start going at Clocky. 2 days later, out of nowhere, Tomie says that they need to talk about the whole fat stuff, and she wants to help Clocky get rid of it or suppress it. The conversation then talks about how people are going at Tomie because she's associating with Clocky. 2 days after that, on the 9th of June, Tomie suddenly breaks up with Clocky. Just an interesting sequence of events that Tomie's friends have mentioned multiple times in the lead up. As I've gone over earlier, on the 20th of June, Tomie finds out that Clocky has other fetishes that she didn't know about. However, what I didn't go over, and something that Tomie never mentions, is that they both actually sorted out this issue and settled it 2 days later. This really doesn't make sense at all because we have DMs that show that they settled this issue ages ago. So why was this then brought back up and made into the crux of a Google Doc? Well, from what I've seen, I think it comes down to pettiness and personal issues. On the 27th of June, a day before the Google Doc, Tomie confronts Clocky and berates him for a tweet on his private account about one of her drawings. As far as I can tell, it wasn't particularly harsh. Clocky says it was nothing more than just a joke, but this sets off Tomie.
Dude, that was like so, like, it was just me making fun of her, like, quote unquote pimp Sona, being like, what is this? That was literally, that's all I said, like, what the hell is this?
Then the next day, the day on which the Google Doc is published, Tomie goes at Clocky again because Clocky posted a tweet of one of Tomie's friends blocking her on Twitter. Tomie says that this person didn't want 14-year-olds interacting with suggestive accounts, but from what we see in the DMs here, it seems like Clocky didn't even know that. They didn't even get a reason for why they were blocked, they were just blocked out of the blue. And plus, the focus here is more on Clocky posting a picture of someone blocking them on Twitter. Like, wow, that's a huge crime being posted there. Okay, I guess. Stop posting shit publicly. What did I post? Like, if someone blocked you because they don't want 14-year-olds interacting with suggestive accounts, you shouldn't be publicly shaming them. You sound like a dick. Leave alone. Thank you. How was I shaming them? Delete the post of her blocking you. Okay, damn. She doesn't owe you an explanation. Well, even if I already did. That's still so stupid because was so fine with me drawing his stuff and showed no kind of hesitation to not allow me to. Damn, it's vile of you to do. People oppose the fact that someone blocked them. It's so annoying. I didn't even do anything, I was confused. Also this, how is it not an issue before? I don't care about that, man. Question mark? Because I don't have the answer. Stop asking me shit, I don't know. So you go to Clocky and you berate her for posting a screenshot of one of your friends blocking her on Twitter for seemingly no reason, and then come in here and give the explanation, and then when Clocky says, hey, this is contradictory to what I was told before, you decide, you know what, I don't have the answer. Stop asking me stuff. Even though I came to you, stop asking me stuff. This gets into another conversation about Tommie's friends not liking Clocky again. Well, that's why. That is what is happening. She was too scared herself to say, I don't feel comfortable with you interacting with us because of your fetish. She's been fetishized by someone, so you kind of give her a lot of PTSD. Tell me no idea what's happening and why. Also, I don't even let the fetish get to me most of the time. It doesn't really matter. It's the fact that you have it at all. That's why. Okay, do you want me to be honest? I don't care, dude. Literally told me before he wasn't even aware. Well, I know he is, because his girlfriend told me she told him at some point. I don't know, I'm just getting stressed out, sorry. I just wanted to clear this up, but like, I'm crying myself out of stress. It's too much, I shouldn't be dealing with this. This is amazing. You came in with all the smoke in the beginning, and then now you're playing the victim at the end. And then in the evening, they have their final conversation, which we've shown before, and the Google document drops. Pretty interesting. There were a lot of like loosely related arguments leading up to this, which caused Tomie to dig back up this issue and use it as part of a public Google Doc. This also throws suspicion onto Tommie's other allegation. Apparently Clocky was trying to silence Tomie from coming out about her experience. I mean, looking at these DMs and seeing such melodrama like, you don't know how to feel. How the hell do you think I feel? How do you think I feel hushing myself up for you? Wishing is going to take it back. Honestly, me silencing myself for you to be happy hasn't helped me whatsoever, and it's been making me feel worse than I do. It did raise an eyebrow, but then I looked at the DMs, and the silencing is essentially Clocky saying, hey, I know you have an issue with me, but could you please not talk about an already settled issue with other people? I mean, did Tomie ever think of the fact that, like, Clocky might be saying this because she doesn't want other random people that she doesn't know to know about her fetishes? It's okay, it's just, I wish you stopped telling people about what I did, like it wasn't ever resolved or it was recent. That's all I ask. I was pissed off, and the Vor thing sent it off bad. Bitches be like, but are actually terrible people. And yeah, I know there are people out there with the motivation to talk others into silence so they don't speak up. I'm not pretending that doesn't happen, but Clocky literally told you her motive. The motive is she didn't want her private sexual life exposed. That's literally why Clocky hid this from you in the first place. I understand why someone would reserve suspicion, but to outright say this is silencing and making a Google Doc about this is just absurd. The thing is, this whole idea of Clocky maliciously fetishizing Tomie as this helpless victim is just too unreliable of a claim to make. Tomie, either thanks to malice or mental illness or the pressure of her friends, will constantly take back and resolve situations at any given moment. She is an unreliable narrator who will contradict her story throughout the DMs and has exaggerated messages to prove her claims. Now you understand why there weren't many screenshots in the Google Doc, because most of them make her look terrible. So you can see why when Clocky said that she was told by a close friend and reliable source that Tomie was outright lying about the accusation of fetishizing, I tend to believe it.
I made a tweet earlier. It's on my pin. You can go look at it if you want. But I basically had found out like days prior, seeing that a close friend of hers, which I will not name, even I still don't like. They do not want anyone knowing at all. But a very trustworthy like friend, like an insider, they were like, by the way, I just got told that she apparently lied to you because she didn't like you and you have a fetish. And I was like, what the fuck? You go out of your way, ruin someone's life, lie to this person saying that it's resolved. You lie to so many people. You lie to the entire internet. You make it seem like I'm an awful person because you don't like me. That is another level of like pettiness.
So yeah, I mean if this was me I'd be pretty pissed off at this point, and rightfully so, especially considering that two people have falsely accused Clocky of fetishizing with something that she was groomed into at an early age. And Tomie knew what happened, so to try and make this accusation with the basis given is kinda disgusting. It's even worse considering the fact that according to Clocky and numerous others, Tomie and her friend group have vanished from the internet following this accusation.
Most of her friends have like completely like disappeared from the internet. Like I have no whereabouts besides one person who's on Skype apparently. I didn't even know that still was like functional. But like they all immediately ran. Like this was like some like organized like shit. It's scary like how people will like do this and be like, okay, we have to leave. Go, hide.
My best guess is that they'll probably never come back to take any of the responsibility they should. I mean, Tomie already has about 10,000 different names she's gone under. Maybe it was a planned move to just drop an accusation, smear Clocky's name, and run away like cowards. Probably thinking that this won't be picked up by anyone, but here we are. So you may be asking yourself at the end of all this, why this case? Why would I, with the platform I have, decide to look into the case of a 14-year-old with 1,000 followers on Twitter? Someone who isn't even completely innocent because he's still guilty of being a total snake who didn't fulfill his promises and wasn't honest about what he was into. Is it saltiness because I got dogpiled on Twitter for something I was right about? Kind of. But that plays a part in it because how Clocky was treated by people from FNF Twitter was unacceptable. Her friends were shamed into disassociating with her, she received gore in the DMs, her phone number was doxed, and her sister received death threats, all over allegations that no one really wanted to look into. I think a lot of people base their opinions of this on just that the messages were weird and disgusting. And yeah, I think it's weird when someone sends a message about their fucking belly growing or whatever, but what's at stake? Remove yourself from the initial reaction and ask about what's actually being accused here. What proof do these people have of accusations? It's much easier to blissfully dismiss any wrongdoing, get yourself the idea of a perfect villain to dogpile, maybe someone who you've had an issue in the past. It feels good to have that moral high ground. But when you're on the receiving end, suddenly things become a lot more clear. I think on Twitter there's a sort of idea of not wanting to criticize anyone who makes an accusation out of fear of going against a victim, even if this person doesn't have much proof to support their claims. I mean, for fuck's sake, how was there just an automatic exception of Tomie's document when it was 1 page long and it had like 1 screenshot? I get that people concluded a lot because Clocky immediately put out an apology, thinking it would alleviate all the public pressure, but you gotta remember, Revy did the same thing. This is not like a cue to jump to conclusions. Even then, you can't be neutral and consider other possibilities in this online discourse. You'll get 100 tweets of people telling you to unfollow and disassociate. I understand the overall sentiment is to make it so victims can come out easier with all the support, but is it too much to ask for a bit of skepticism to whatever you're boosting? When I made my motion to leave the FNF community in 2023, I did it because I didn't want to be seen as the person who people always go to when they have allegations or problems with people. That's not what I started YouTube for. I wanted to make YouTube videos because it was fun and interesting, not police a community. Plus, I know I'm not perfect. I can and have made mistakes before, and whilst there are nowhere near the levels that have been displayed by Zaev and Tomie, they still affect people. I left because I'm not perfect, and I felt like if I stayed, there would be a bit of like a community-wide brain drain on perceiving allegations and the severity. This has shown me that any change that was going to happen after the Revy situation was stopped because I left. But let's not make this ending about me. Bottom line is, whilst Clocky333 is guilty of some stuff, it wasn't anywhere near something that warranted such harassment and slander, and her accusers are downright awful people who have lied and clipped stuff out of context. I don't think enough people realise that not everything has to be aired out online, but it's pretty clear that the accusers here absolutely knew that. Their so-called victimhood is based on very different motives. Until next time, stay safe and stay toasty. I mean, if we're bringing back FNF content, we may as well bring back the old outro.